Because I spend most of my time in this, then whoever's working with me needs to know how I prefer to work.
Well, definitely. And it's so specific to the individual. I've worked with a lot of wheelchair users and they all have different preferred ways of working.
Yeah, like some people don't mind if you do a curb cut, dropping off a high curb, but I really do. So if you are working with somebody that does need that kind of support, moving and assisting, then it's likely to be a big part of their life. So it's better that you have that conversation first, otherwise then you're going to run into problems.
Communication is very important, and you must communicate at all times with the person that you're assisting. Getting their permission to actually do any manoeuvres, not making assumptions about what they want, but getting agreement and explaining it to them. You may find that they can do a lot more for themselves by getting that agreement.
What's important when moving is that each of you know exactly where you're moving from, where you're moving to, and which way you intend to do it. In this case, I always tend to be the leader in that. I want to go from here to there, and I think we'll do it that way. And normally, Eva would say to me, why do we do it this way? Or that way? Or say yes. Because don't forget, we do these quite often, and although they're demanding and risky at the time, if done properly, then they're quite safe.
You know, I don't just bend to pick Andrew up or anything like that. No, we don't. You know, at the same time, as well as Andrew's safety, I've got to look after my own safety as well. It works for both of us.
Sometimes you might still be unclear, even after you've discussed it, or you just might not be comfortable with a preferred way of working. In that case, I'll always ask a colleague or seek professional advice from someone like an occupational therapist.
So it becomes a three-way conversation. You'll never overrule me, but when it comes to talking about best practice or technique, then you ask somebody else for advice. I'd rather do that than muddle through.
Sure, so I'll ask for outside help if it's for answers to do with best practice or technique, but I'll always ask you if it's about how you prefer to work or if the alternative methods suit you. No one else can tell you that. It's also worth maybe familiarising yourself with the moving and assisting guidelines, just so we're on the same page.
I've heard some stories, believe me. They go to show that there's good ways and bad ways of doing everything. And what works for one person doesn't work for another.
Which is why it's really important to ask your employer at the start their preferred ways of working. I mean, what would you say are your main do's and don'ts, apart from the obvious best practice stuff? You know, so the spine in line, wide, stable base, palm type hold, safety checks, etc.
It sounds obvious, but look at the plan that you've set out and be consistent. Take your time and give it your full concentration. You'd be amazed how many people forget stuff like that.
Anything else?
Don't assume, and don't do anything that you wouldn't want done to yourself.
I think that's a good rule of thumb in any discipline.
And if you are going to move me, ask first. You're about to touch a part of my body, so I'd like a bit of warning. And better still, wait till I ask you.
PAs will have access to a file or some sort of report that's been written by an occupational therapist. So somewhere around, historically, there will be some sort of documentation that says this is what needs to be done and how it should be done. The practice very often is that the person who requires moving and assisting will have their own preferences. And so providing that those are safe choices, I think the PA should work with those. And there's training available to help them feel more confident if it's something that they haven't done before.
I need to get in and out of the car, I need to get in and out of bed and on and off the loo. Because I demonstrate with one of my family and demonstrate again and show her, and we work together, and when we're training, so we do it repeatedly, you know, until she's content and happy with it. If there's any problems, we work them out.
Do talk to your employer and make sure that you're doing everything that they want in the safest way possible. Another do is look after yourself, because it's not just the employer that's important, it's also your own self, and making sure that you're safe and going home at the end of the day.
What about the actual pushing?
That's easy. Remember, I'm the employer, and although you're doing the physical pushing, we're going where I want to go, at the pace I want to go at. What about you? Can you think of anything that'd be good for me?
It's just a general thing, but just aim for a smooth ride. Also, I always try and keep my hair tied back and just wear suitable clothing and footwear. Well, that helps me as much as it helps you.
There's just as many don'ts though, like don't use your mobile when moving or assisting, don't use controversial techniques like the drag lift because that just hurts, and then don't wear things like watches and rings and jewellery because they can scratch when you're trying to move somebody.
It's easy to forget stuff like that though.
And this one I really hate. Don't try and do two things at once, like move me and adjust my clothes at the same time. It's embarrassing.
Oh, as well, don't bend or stoop. And also, always remember to bend from your knees and not from your joints.
Oh, and if you want to give a warning, don't say 1, 2, 3. I'm not a box. Say something like ready, steady, move. It's more engaging and you're not talking at me, you're talking to me.
What about curb cuts? You mentioned them before.
Don't do it. I hate it. Turn me round and put my big wheels on the ground first.
A few of my employees have had quite a lot to say about negotiating doors.
Yeah, don't use me to push a door open, and definitely don't use me as a doorstop. If we are at a restaurant or somewhere where the door opens out, lean with your weight against the door and push me in from the side.
It can be tricky though if your PA is a bit smaller or they're just not used to working like this.
I can understand that, but that's when you find something that works for the pair of you. You know, it must be difficult dealing with all the equipment. I mean, you've probably dealt with loads of it with your other employees.
Yeah, ramps and hoists and bed rails, and that's where the risk assessment thing comes in really helpful. It's not all about health and safety though, which we'll get onto. It's more about reducing the risk of neglect.
Never actually push someone in a wheelchair where you feel it's unsafe. So certainly if you're looking at a 10 by 1 hill, I certainly wouldn't be pushing anyone in a wheelchair. It is very much down to the risk assessment. Also making sure that the wheelchair itself is fit for purpose.
As far as pushing a manual chair is concerned, I think that, again, from the employer's point of view, they would always want to tell you what they're comfortable with in terms of how much you tilt the chair, how you approach a curb or some sort of impediment or a ramp. As the person doing the pushing, you need to be aware at all times of what those barriers are going to be like.
Well, they in the beginning, they don't realise there are limitations to a chair. Like a car, you cannot turn a car in its own circle, it has a bigger turning circle. Same for a wheelchair. I don't like having doors and things bashed. And often people think they can do it like a human being. You can go in a space which is your size. You can turn, you can't do that on a wheelchair. So people have to understand. So I always hope and expect them to sit in my chair in the beginning. And oh, this is more, oh, this is not easy, they say. Ah, didn't know it's so hard. But they get an understanding. It's also very important when you're changing gradients, going up a hill or down a hill, that you stay alert to it. Human bodies at work are fabulous because they can stop themselves, they go a bit faster without a fraction of a second passing. It's not the same in a chair.
If we've spoken about my needs though, whether it be physical, emotional or medical, then you're less likely to neglect them.
Exactly, and it's really important that I know if you or any of my employers are taking medication, how much, and also any possible causes of distress.
It's not just about what you do though, it's about how you do it. But it's about respect and a good relationship. It's just good manners, isn't it? I mean, if you don't ask me, is it okay if I move you or is it okay if I do this? Because if you didn't, I might feel ignored and like I'm being moved like a piece of meat. And after all, you're supposed to be delivering a personal, respectful service.
Andrew and myself work over my fear of I didn't want to hurt him. I just want to make sure that he's safe, so we worked it between us.
Both parties are vulnerable when they're actually undertaking moving and handling. There's the safety aspects, of course there's also the protection side of things that make sure that people are in agreement about what they're going to do.
communicating with the person is essential in every stage, in every aspect of where you touch, how you move, how you position a chair, how you position a hoist. All of those things will be individual. It is a learning process. I mean, a good employer will tell you, I'm more comfortable if you do it that way, or can we try it another way? Or as a PA, you might say, have you thought that if we did it this way, it might work better?
Don't push me, don't touch my chair unless you're informing. The number of fingers I've had trapped because people push me without saying I'm going to push now. So give me time to react to your commands. What you can do easily, I can't. Again, it's the same thing, keep me informed what you're doing. It's very much like dancing. Your partner has to really be able to read your body. It's crucial that we both know what we're doing and do it with maximum effort.